Well, some years ago, really not too long ago, I was invited to go out to a little community west of Salt Lake City and speak at a funeral of a distant cousin. It was a wonderful funeral, and towards the end of the funeral, to my total surprise, there appeared on the screen, sort of a homemade movie screen, a photograph of my father in his big 10-gallon cowboy hat, sitting on his horse, trailing a herd of cattle down out of the mountains. And the side of him, not far behind, was the man whose funeral we had just celebrated. And his daughter, after we saw the film, told this story of her father and my father. She said back in the 1930s, it was the custom for my father to buy cattle from all of the neighboring ranches and drive the cattle from the mountains down to the little valley in Salina, Utah, where there was what we call a railhead. In other words, a place where the train stopped at the end of the tracks and the cattle were loaded on the train to be shipped to market. And this man whose funeral it was told of an experience that he had with my father when he was driving these cattle and then buying them from each of the ranchers along the way. He stopped in the little town of Grass Valley, and a man came out and had a large bull that he wanted to sell. And my Uncle Alvin said, "Well, how much do you want for that bull, Mr. Lipsey?" He said, "I would like $100 for the bull." Father had given my Uncle Alvin a checkbook from which he could write a check to pay the ranchers as he came through town. And so he wrote out a check for $100, gave it to Mr. Lipsey, and drove the bull into the herd. 2 days later, when they reached the town of Salina and were sorting the cattle, Father noticed the bull. And he said, "Alvin, where did you get that bull?" And he told him. "How much did you pay for it?" $100. "Who was the owner of the bull, did you say again?" He said his name was Boss Lipsey. He said, "Well, let me look at the bull more carefully." After he looked at the bull, he took out his checkbook, made out a check to Boss Lipsey for an additional $50. He said, "Alvin, Mr. Lipsey doesn't know the value of his own animal. You take this $50 back to him and tell him that his bull was worth $150 instead of $100. He said, "Well, Alma," my father's name was Alma. He said, "Alma, I paid him what he asked for the bull. Wasn't that the right thing to do?" And he said, "Well, I suppose it was in your case, but neither you nor Mr. Lipsey knew the value of the bull. I knew what the bull was worth, and I want to pay him another $50. When I see him again, I want to be able to look him in the eye and smile."